Well, anyway, thank you everyone for joining us. I know it's already gotten a little spicy here, but that's what happens when, the president of the United States wants to invade our hometown of Chicago. I'm Susan Demas, the executive editor here at Lincoln Square. And every Tuesday, Edwin Eisendrath joins me. He is the author of It's the Democracy Stupid Subject, and also a show on Lincoln Square by that same name that's on Thursdays. And Edwin has been the CEO of the Chicago Sun-Times. He's been a Chicago alderman. He also hosts a radio show in Chicago on Heartland Signal on the weekends. So he's very busy, and we appreciate that he always takes time for us at Lincoln Square. Thank you so much.
Happy to be here.
Well, I know we started with Chicago. I think let's back up just a little bit
Sure.
because yesterday the Supreme Court gave its blessing to letting ICE raids continue in LA specifically. And the most significant thing to me was that they basically gave their blessing to Trump's racial profiling, which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
extraordinary.
So, for perspective, this court has said, look, we're in a post racial America. John Roberts famously said about racial gerrymandering, we don't do that sort of thing anymore. There is no bigotry in our political maps. To which I think Ruth Bader Ginsburg said, yeah, that's like saying you're staying dry. What? Because you're standing under the umbrella. And now you want to take away the umbrella.
Right.
Right. So,
Right.
so this court says, no, you cannot consider race in anything, not in college admissions, not in anything really. It's just we live in an America that's colorblind, and that's where we want to be. And that's moral high ground. I'd love it if we lived in that America. We don't
Absolutely.
actually, but that's what they said. Oh, except it was all a lie. It was all a Supreme Court lie, like everything else. And we now know that because you bet they said racial profiling. They said if you look Latino, if you speak Spanish, ICE can sweep you up and put you in a detention center, and good luck finding a lawyer to help bail you out.
Yeah, so much
Right?
for due process.
No, well, I mean, everything about this, and it's not a surprise. John Roberts has been cosplaying Robert Taney for, 10 years.
I was just in Missouri in Taney County, and my husband and I were just talking about, remarkable that he is now not the worst Supreme Court justice.
Well, it's right. I mean, and just for those of you who are listening, Robert Taney authored the Dred Scott decision, which, helped plunge us into civil war. And John Roberts is doing his best to follow that model, but he thinks there won't be a civil war. He just thinks his side's going to win. And
Right,
for
because
God's sake, it's
he's doing
supposed to be
everything he
one
can.
country. His view and Trump's view is there's a side, it's our side, nobody else's vote counts. We are going to win. That's not how you keep a country together. That's not how you move a country forward. These are the worst people. And there's something else about the Supreme Court. This decision isn't just repulsive. Um, if you look at all these decisions they made and all this shadow docket BS they've done,
Right,
what they're saying to the lower courts, who 94% of the time have ruled against Donald Trump, have said
right.
he's a lawbreaker. And then the Supreme Court says, we don't know if he is or isn't. We're not going to consider the merits, but you can't. We're staying your order right now.
Right, so he can
We'll
just
consider it.
continue doing what he wants.
Continue to do what you want. We'll take up this case sometime in 2084. But right now, right
Right.
now, you could do it. And what the Supreme Court is really saying to the lower courts is, why are you showing up for work? Go away. We reserve the right. We Supreme Courts are the only ones who have anything to say about Donald Trump. He can
Right.
do or not do, and that's on us. And we'll decide that in due time. And there is no court in the land who can step in and do something in the interim. And
It
that is so dangerous to America and so um, contrary to the process of the way we do rule of law in America on that alone they should all be impeached and thrown out.
I mean, it is extraordinary that you have the biggest attack on the judiciary is coming from the Supreme Court.
Absolutely,
Um,
absolutely right,
and
absolutely right.
what you have this situation where you have the president working in conjunction with a right-wing corrupt Supreme Court is that they discovered over the course of decades that the right-wing agenda that they wanted to impose was not popular. None of it is. I mean, look at Trump's numbers on the economy, on immigration, on crime. He's not winning on anything. And they can't win at the ballot box, so they have given up on democracy. And it's just, we want to rule by fiat and we want to impose our will on you. We saw this start with the Supreme Court well before Trump, with a less conservative iteration, but still extremely conservative, where they feel that 9 justices are the final say, not Congress, not any of us at home, but they get to decide. They think that abortion should be illegal. It's illegal. So much for stare decisis. So much for 49 years of precedent. They get to decide. And that's been, their MO for a long time, but now it's supercharged under the second Trump administration, where they have just given him carte blanche on all sorts of illegal measures that the lower courts have tried to put a stop to. I mean, it's really an extraordinary moment for our country that this is where we're at.
Yeah, one case I think would be nearly impossible. They could surprise me because there's no low they haven't been willing to go. But I think the affirmation of Donald Trump's culpability in the E. Jean Carroll case and the
Yes.
affirmation that he owes her all that money because he slandered and libeled her on top
$83
of
million.
sexually
dollars.
harassing her and lying about it. The jury looked at that evidence. They said, yeah, he is a sexual predator. He attacked her and then he lied about it and then he defamed her. And that was a jury of his peers in New York. They heard that evidence. They made that determination. There's a big evidentiary pattern here. It's going to get appealed to the Supreme Court. And the court may say, "Oh, 83 million sounds too much. Maybe we should tell them to go back and look at that." But they're on very tough grounds if they try and overturn that one, because they
Absolutely.
have to then get rid of, the whole question of how we look at evidence in the United States. Again, they would undermine the judicial system
Yeah.
entirely. That one, but who knows what they will do for this meeting?
Yeah. But I have to say, as a woman, as a human being, I mean, the fact that we reelected a man who was found in a court of law to be liable for sexual assault. And this has been upheld, now in the appeals court, you know, $83 million. I mean, this is the point we're at. And yet somehow he is still arguing that, he has some sort of moral high ground on the Epstein files when we
Oh,
know
wait,
his
wait.
history.
Wait, we'll get to the Epstein files in a
Okay.
second. But on this Key Jean Carroll case, I
Yeah.
forgot. His defense was the Supreme Court said the president's not liable. Are you kidding me? Is he telling America that um, being a sexual predator or libeling an American citizen is an official duty of the president of the United States? Is
Yeah.
that what he really thinks? And is he saying being president absolves him of his behavior before he was president? That's what I mean. That is the most royalist, monarchical. I'm the tutti di tutti capi. Of that's just utter nonsense in America.
Yeah.
I mean, it
Well,
doesn't even pass the laugh test. It's just BS.
did you happen to catch his bizarre speech at the Museum of the Bible yesterday, where he was basically saying that, you've got the right to beat your wife in private. That's a private matter. I mean, I know that, he blathers on and it's easy to just ignore him. But I mean, we have a president who is just so openly misogynistic. It's just, every day there's something new. And so for me, I think that, it all connects with the Epstein files issue because, last week we
Because it's
had
character. It's character. And that's
Exactly,
who he
and
is.
he is someone, who is proven to be of the lowest moral character. This is someone who, again, we have the Stormy Daniels case. He had a wife at home with an infant, his infant son, and he's cheating on her, and then of course goes on to defame her. I mean, over and over again. His attacks of women, are legend. He's been credibly accused of sexual assault by 28 women. And so last week you had more brave women come forward and, talk about how they had been abused by Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, who who got a sweetheart deal to move to a club-fed prison in Texas by the Trump administration.
Mhm.
There's no justice for these survivors. And this is an issue that should not go away.
Well, I don't
And
think it will, but really seriously, let's just pound on
yeah,
that. Like this drawing that came out where his signature is in the crotch of a woman
the
supposedly,
Wall
right?
Street
Wall
Journal,
Street Journal,
yeah,
like,
the
yeah,
story
okay.
yesterday.
So MAGA world is instantly defending their president. Can't be him. It's not his signature. He says it's not me. It's him. Doesn't like forget it. Don't even say it's him. He did it. It's his. That's who he is. It's completely in character. There's no piece of evidence in his life that runs contrary to it being him.
No,
And he
yeah,
opens his mouth, he's lying. And
no,
that MAGA world falls for that. I mean, I don't even think they believe it. They think we will believe them. And guess what? They every time they open their mouth and parrot these lies, they undercut themselves. It's just all nonsense. Their president is a predator.
right. I mean, we understand that the large majority of the MAGA movement thinks that Trump can do whatever he wants, but I mean, you have to sit with this. You're okay with the president of the United States being a pedophile. That's a line you're willing to cross. I mean, that's a Rubicon. And not only did we get that drawing, but, there was the picture of that fake jumbo check where Epstein and Trump were exchanging money
Yeah.
over a woman because women and girls are just another commodity.
So
Just
he's
something.
okay with
Right.
domestic abuse,
Yeah.
apparently this week. I wonder, we have cases like this that go to trial where women who have been abused get pushed to the point where they shoot their husbands. I mean, what's Donald Trump got to say? Is that also just private domestic matter? Like, okay, she got pushed too far, she shot him. That shouldn't go to court. Is he,
I mean,
you know,
everyone has the right to the Second Amendment according to this Supreme Court. Well, and so
Melania
obviously,
does. Melania has the right to the Second Amendment.
yeah.
Just saying.
Well, there are a lot of parallels between, how Trump acts in his personal life with his attitude towards his role as president. He feels that he can do whatever he wants, he can take whatever he wants. We're all just commodities. We're all just something to control and profit from. And I was really happy to see over the weekend that in Washington, D.C., a city that has been under siege by our own domestic troops at the behest of Donald
Mhm.
Trump. They stood up, and there were really powerful rallies to protest this occupation. And there was some coverage, but not if you turn on the TV, you did not see a lot. There was some print coverage. And it was really striking to me because, this is in the heart of DC. I've been a journalist for 25 years. You can't go, a half a block without, bumping into a journalist there. There are plenty of people to cover it.
Mhm.
But like we've seen over and over again in the second Trump era, you see corporate media that cowers to him. And, these protests are powerful and we shouldn't stop. But, we should understand that clearly this is not the story that, a lot of corporate media are interested in telling.
Yeah, I mean, I struggle with that. I mean, you and I are guilty a little bit of this in that we began our conversation talking about Donald Trump and the terrible the Supreme Court and Donald Trump, the
Yeah.
terrible things they're doing. But
Yeah.
but it's important that we change our focus in every conversation and remember that for all the reasons we know, they aren't America. They
Yeah.
have their hands on a lot of power right now. But America is different than they are. And America is rejecting their rule. America is rejecting their policy. America is rejecting their character in
Yeah.
profound ways. And
Yeah.
we are standing up and we are standing together. Huge rally in DC, very big rally in Chicago again.
Mhm.
And I know the organizing that's going on here to protect us from his ICE raids. It's incredible. It's deep. It's throughout every neighborhood. There are coalitions forming between different journalist organizations to protect the journalists as they go out and try and tell the truth. There's a huge effort to get social media to be part of the journalism that we do. All of this is a sign that civil society is not crushed, that civil society, I'm sorry, John Roberts, we do not agree with you. We will not be ruled by a unitary executive who is all powerful. That
Right.
is not who America is, and and we're not helpless. We are not helpless.
No. And next month is the next round of No Kings protests that was
Mhm,
just announced.
mhm.
And I, really would expect that, in Chicago, you're going to see one of the biggest turnouts, with Trump. At that point, we'll probably, have, a full on invasion there as well. But I think this is a really good opportunity. There were great protests over the summer, but, now we're at the point where it will be almost a year before the midterm elections. We've seen what Trump is willing to do with his so-called Department of War. Where he is willing to terrorize American citizens and treat us as subjects, not as citizens. So I think this is a really good opportunity for us all to get out and to have an even bigger turnout than we had last time.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, think about in the several months that passed since those No Kings protests, think about all that he has done in that time. The budget bill, the MAGA murder bill that's kicking millions of people off healthcare, that was passed, and giving tons of tax breaks to billionaires. We have seen him going to LA, going to Washington, now, going to Chicago and possibly Baltimore and on and on. This is not stopping.
Well,
So
and
this.
Susan, let's talk about I mean, presidents do all kinds of things if they think it's going to have an outcome that's good. So
Mhm,
let's talk about the outcomes. Leave Donald Trump aside. We
mhm,
now know, it came out this morning, that job growth is even slower than we thought. That in fact
right,
there are a million fewer jobs in this year than the few than the so the economy is really slowing down. So
right.
inherited the strongest economy in the world, has
Yes. Where there was
driven,
job growth every single month under Joe Biden.
yeah, only president in history, by the way, despite all the picking on poor Joe.
Right,
Um, you know, um, excuse me. So his stewardship of the economy is terrible. His his tariff regime is not economic policy. It's weird chaos. Sometimes it's retribution against leaders he doesn't like.
right. Like in
Sometimes,
India,
yeah, like in India,
because he didn't get nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize.
right? And he said, China is the real problem, but he hasn't. He's like, China's. We were dancing on. We haven't put the kinds
China
of
is
tariffs
eating
down
our lunch. They are going to take over our scientific research that we're
every way,
doing,
right? So he's
our
so
automotive industry.
the outcomes there terrible. If you talk about foreign policy, larger, we have still the largest land war in Europe, the one he was going to end on day one, the one he had two presidential summits on, and he's done nothing. And that
No,
war is getting worse, and more
right.
Ukrainians
Putin
are
is
getting killed.
taking full advantage with and becoming more brutal than ever towards Ukraine because he knows that Trump will do nothing.
Well, and more, right? It was in an article this morning I read that said that the administration has ordered the IRS not to crack down on the kind of tax haven things that the wealthiest Americans and some companies do, right? So,
Right,
so normal Americans are paying their taxes out of their check every week,
right.
and
And
they got to
we'll
wait for
be
a
we'll be paying
refund
more.
for money that they're owed at the end of the year, right?
Mhm.
And while the big guys, the government is being told not to collect their taxes.
Yeah.
So are you kidding me? Like ordinary Americans, Any Americans who think we should be in the business of protecting the wealthy at all costs is making a huge mistake. And that mistake is being made, by the way, by the folks around Andrew Cuomo in New York who think that campaign is about protecting the richest people in New York. And God forbid somebody says, well, maybe that's not shouldn't be our only priority, you know? Um, uh, and it's happening. So not every Democrat has quite figured this out yet. You can't side with the money on everything and still be for America.
No.
Not the way we're going. We have to deal with this wealth gap.
We do. And it's getting infinitely worse under Donald Trump. I mean, this has been a long-standing problem, and, I think we have to be fair and say, past Democratic presidents, especially Clinton and Obama, did not do enough. Joe Biden tried, but, he was battling inflation, and, this is something that is, I think, one of our defining issues, and this government under Trump is a smash and grab. They are trying to grab all the wealth they can. They are in thrall with people like Elon Musk and Curtis Yarvin, who think that the rest of us are serfs and they are here to rule us. And that is not what America is. And that's why it's important for us to stand up. And I truly believe that they're not going to win, because this is not what anyone wants. A lot of people decided to take a shot and vote for Trump because they wanted a better economy. Are you getting a better economy? Certainly not. Job growth has stalled. There are all sorts of signs with recession in terms of the housing market. Black unemployment has gone up under Trump. Whatever happened to those Trump jobs we were all promised? The only reason why our agricultural industry hasn't collapsed, with him raiding all of their workers and with these absurd tariffs, is that just like in the first administration, he's bailing them out to the tune of billions, a year. This is not an economy that is going to work for anyone but people like Donald Trump and his friends, and there are a lot more of us than there are of them.
Yes, we have to see it clearly for what it is, and we have to win. And he will come after the elections. He said it. His lawyer, Cleta Mitchell, said this week that we need to declare he needs to declare an emergency and federalize the elections.
Right.
So, right, that can't happen. That's not how it works.
No.
I mean, there isn't even an emergency power for that, and he's taken a lot of emergency powers.
No, and what
Speaking
is
of
the
emergency power,
emergency?
let's 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 talk for a second about Congress fighting for a budget,
Yeah,
because the last time there was a CR, it wasn't a clean continuing resolution. Speaker Johnson put in that bill the phrase that a day doesn't count as a day for the purposes of declaring an emergency. And that meant that there was no clock on Trump's emergency power. He just got to
right.
keep it indefinitely. Um, Democrats, m- I believe, will be, because they must be tougher this time.
Yeah,
They must either get really big concessions written into law, concessions that says you cannot uh, rescind this, you cannot do rescissions, you can't, like, you must spend this money, and you're going to restore some healthcare money. And by the way, these emergencies will end. Otherwise, they should say you do it with your own votes if you can, and own all of this trouble.
right.
Um, but if I just hope none of them cave and do something
Yeah.
sweet.
And look, you've been in government, both as an elected official and in HUD,
Mhm.
and there is a great instinct amongst, Democratic leaders where they're like, we want to be the adults in the room. We want to make government work. But, we're in a situation where not only do Republicans not want government to work, but they want to smash our entire democratic system of governance, and that is what they're doing. And so
Yeah,
desperate times
sometimes
call for
adults,
desperate
right?
measures.
Sometimes, I mean, Dwight Eisenhower was an adult, and,
Mhm.
he was in some pretty tough rooms, and sometimes his answer was the troops are gonna go there, you know? I mean, you're right, you make tough decisions. D-Day was a tough decision to make. Um, Adults make hard decisions, and Democrats better do it.
Absolutely.
Don't misunderstand this moment. This isn't normal
No.
politics.
And, one of the reasons why, Democrats continue to struggle in the polls is that, when you drill down to what people want, they want Democrats to stand up and fight. And I think there are certainly many Democratic leaders who are doing that, but, that those leaders have to include Chuck Schumer in the Senate, for instance.
Yeah, I hope so. That's right. They do. And I hope that um, uh, elected Democrats, they mostly do, but some still need a little help on this. They don't talk like normal human beings
No,
because of the polling and the consultants, and people don't connect. And look, you gotta be honest with people. And you got to be genuine. You got to say what you think. Not everybody's going to agree with it. You might actually offend somebody sometime. It happens. And if you offend somebody, and you don't mean it. Then you learn and you apologize and you grow. That's what human beings do. And people don't expect their politicians to be different than that. They expect them to be human.
right. Right. And, I think you've got two really good examples of Democrats that have figured this out. And they've done it in different ways. You've got Gavin Newsom, who, has gone the route of mocking the dictator, which is a very effective route. And it's
It's a
funny and
lot of
people
fun.
like
I'm
it.
enjoying it.
And we need some joy. And then
Yep.
you have somebody like your governor,
Mhm.
JB Pritzker, who, has given, very important speeches about the historical moment that we're in. But it's not a history lesson that people are going to snooze through. He taught, sorry, I'm biased. He's from Chicago. He talks like a regular guy. You get
Yep.
what he's saying. And that's what we need more of.
Well, and I just, if it's up to Chicago to save the country and Los Angeles, look, Los Angeles did its job. I mean, when the Dodgers said, you know what, ICE can't come into this stadium, it was a magic moment for the whole country.
Yep.
And I expect Chicago will do its job. DC's trying to do its job. It's more complicated there. But I think Chicago will do what will make America proud. We will not get bullied. I mean, ICE has lots of legal rights to do some of the things they do, but they're going to have to stay within the bounds of what they have the legal rights to do. And we will, if not, we will find them. We will figure out who's under that mask, and and stop them.
Absolutely. Why don't we talk just a little bit about your article that we published on Lincoln Square,
Mm.
today, where you went through the motley crew of Trump's cabinet, but you had a special disdain for Howard Lutnick, the Commerce
Yeah,
Secretary, who is an alleged capitalist who has sold out those values because he's seen that under Trump there is a fabulous opportunity for he and his family to get rich.
yeah. Look, I, I mean, the motivation for writing this piece came to me early in the morning when I was walking my dog, and that's generally a happy time for me. I'm
Yeah.
out, the sun's coming up, I'm with my dog. And it just occurred to me, I think the first time in my life, and I am not young, there is no one, not one person in the senior levels of the United States government that I can admire. Not one. Imagine that. I mean, I'm teaching kids at DePaul University who grew up in the Trump era, and they have to look at a government where there is zero to admire. I mean, I just I think back on the government's. Well, I mean, even plenty of people in Joe's cabinet I admired, but
Yeah.
always. I mean, there were people, in Bush's presidency who were talented.
Yeah.
There were people in Reagan's too who were talented, um, and good people. This one, there's
Right.
zero to
Yeah.
admire, and that
Right.
is just so shocking. And I took to, I mean, all of them are repulsive. I mean, uh, uh, Russ Vought
KG
is
or
the
right.
actual devil, but I did spend time on Lutnick because he's not an idiot, but
No.
whatever he thought he believed in his whole life, he just cashiered so that the government now can own Intel and own pieces of the defense company.
Right.
And then there's this, his family. Oh my God. His kids now have his investment company and they are
Sounds
buying
familiar with
up.
Trump, right?
Right? Yeah, so his kids have that company, and they are buying the rights for refunds on tariffs when the Supreme Court rules that the tariffs are illegal. So imagine, their dad is the point person on tariffs. No one in America knows more about this. The kids are buying up the tariffs, that buying up the refunds for pennies on the dollar. So if the refunds come, they'll make a bloody fortune. But
Right.
even they could have sold those at a higher rate just this week after the court ruled they were illegal. So they may have already made their killing, who knows?
Right.
But
It
this
just
kind of
it
conflict of interest used to matter to Americans, but not in this world because everything's so corrupt.
Yeah. And I mean, this is clearly the most corrupt administration in America history. It makes the Teapot Dome scandal look quaint. It makes what Nixon did look like child's play. And, they have benefited from the fact that, look, a lot of people don't like politicians. They think they're all corrupt. And Trump took full advantage of that by saying, hey, you ain't seen nothing yet. And that is the ethos of his cabinet. Remember, Edwin, remember back in the days of like the 80s and the 90s where we used to hear from conservatives that character counts as they were criticizing especially the Clinton administration? Well, I have to say, I think character does count. I want people in government who are there for the right reasons, who
I do
actually
too.
care about
Absolutely
public
right.
service. And none
Absolutely.
of these people do.
Al Gore, in his concession speech, said, I am absolutely det believe that the Supreme Court made the wrong decision. Absolutely made the wrong decision. But partisanship ends at some point, and you put America first. That's what we've always done. What he didn't know at the time was that there was this group working on the other side who didn't believe that, and who was
Many of which are now on the Supreme Court.
that's right. That's exactly right. And it's time that we face that and we face them. Look, they hate us more than they love this country. And we
Absolutely.
are gonna win because we love this country more than we hate them.
Yeah.
And that's what's gonna make the difference.
And we want an America that works for everyone. If you voted for Donald Trump, we're not here to be punitive about that. We want a country that works for everyone. That's what the promise of America is, for us to keep getting better. We have made many, many mistakes over time. But the important thing is for us to do better for our children and the next generation. And right now, it's very hard to see what that vision could be, but that's what we all have to fight for.
Well, right. Normally, we rely on a president to help us give voice to that vision. And this president cannot do that. He cannot see past what's the transaction of the minute to give us a vision of our future, right? Gonna be great. Gonna be the biggest thing you've ever seen.
Right.
Biggest what, Donald? I don't know, biggest scam? Sure. But not doesn't he doesn't have an answer. Doesn't see it.
No, he doesn't. Well, I know on Thursday you have your show. It's the Democracy Stupid,
Yep.
and you have your guest is Jen Sabella. And can you tell us a little bit about what you're hoping to talk with her? Because I know she comes from the Chicago organizing
Yep.
world, and so this is really
She
good timing.
she comes from the Chicago journalism world. And the reason why I think the whole country will be interested in is that look, journalism as we know has had its problems, big problems. And she and a couple others founded Block Club Chicago, which is the most successful news startup that we have seen. And it's got a big newsroom now, but they are working not to get the scoop at somebody else's expense. I want to talk about how journalism is preparing for the Trump onslaught here in Chicago because it's fascinating and it's an important lesson for the rest of the country and how we can inform each other, how we can rely on each other and protect each other.
That's really inspiring. I mean, I'm really proud of, what we're doing here at Lincoln Square, where we're
Yep,
trying to organize a community, but we need that in every city and every town in the country. And, Edwin, as you and I know, and I know, you're married to a longtime journalist, we've seen, especially at the local level, just newsrooms being decimated, whether it's TV, radio, or newspapers. And
yep.
so that's inspiring to see that that's going on, especially in a city, as important as Chicago.
Yeah, we're still very lucky in that we are a, a well-covered city. We do have strong journalism here and
You have 2 newspapers, which, is a rarity in a city at this point. We have
yeah,
that in Detroit as well. And everyone has wondered for how long, but I think that it's great to see independent news outlets spring up as well because there is more news than any of us have time to cover, and so
sure.
I know back in the days where, maybe in the 80s and 90s, where there was intense competition, between news outlets. Now at this point, I mean, I like competition. I do. I grew up with that. I'm a Cubs fan, long suffering. But, at this point, we need to save our democracy. And I fully believe that a free and independent press is a vital part of that. And so, as many people as who are dedicated to that mission as possible, I think is only a good thing for this country.
I do too. I do too. I mean, you can't have a democracy if you don't have shared facts, and truth still matters, notwithstanding the lies that we get from the top guy every minute. It matters. And so I think it'll be a great conversation.
Yeah, so look for that. It'll be at noon Eastern on Thursday, and you can always catch Edwin every week at this time, 11 o'clock, with me on Tuesdays, and then his show is every week on Thursdays. And we're so glad to have you here. Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Susan. I love these conversations.
I love them too, and thank you for tuning in as well. We love all of your comments as well. Thanks, everyone.